Good evening. It's said that each time a man stands up for an ideal or a cause, or acts to improve the lots of others, he sends forth a ripple of hope. This is exactly what the late Victor Chang did for thousands of Australians who suffer from cardiovascular disease, our #1 killer. This ripple, thanks to the research and work of the Victor Chang Cardio Research Institute, has now produced a current that is breaking down the walls of resistance and finding a cure to a disease that kills over 40,000 Australians every year. Tonight I'm fortunate enough to be joined at the Nine Network studios by a few of Australia's most respected journalists and newsmakers to tell us what the Victor Chang Cardio Research Institute means to them. My first guest has probably spoken to more people in the last 25 years than we will in a lifetime. Mr. Mike Munro, this is your life.
Heard that line before, Phil.
You sure have.
How are you, mate?
Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So, 1996 saw you emceeing probably the biggest charity event the Victor Chang Institute ever did.
Yeah, well,
with Lady Diana, of course.
With Princess Diana, it was probably one of the biggest charity events that had ever been seen in Australia at the time. I think it was one of the first $1,000 receipt nights. It was a huge gala event, and Neville Wran walked Princess Diana in.
He danced with her too, didn't he?
I think he did have a dance with her towards the end. He did, and of course everyone stood to greet her, and she was absolutely charming. She was the perfect guest, and spoke beautifully. She looked stunning, and 10 months to the day.
I was going to say
later,
that. She was dead.
She was dead to the day.
What did she? Do you remember anything she said, or was there anything you took away with you, a memory of her?
I think that she, behind the scenes, she knew what she wanted and how things should be, without going into too much detail. But she was both a lovely guest and very flexible about what I think the organisers were doing, but at the same time wanted it to be right for her as well. She was beautiful. She was
vibrant, really vibrant person, wasn't she?
Yeah,
like in real life, she was as vibrant you saw her in magazines and stuff, wasn't she?
And has a heart. I mean, we know the landmines and travelled out from England for the Victor Chang Cardiac Research Institute. So she has a great heart, and she knows the importance of cardiac research and
Totally. Did you raise a lot of money that night? Can you remember what kind of money?
No, I can't. No, but it was
huge. Must have been huge.
Yeah, it was a lot of money. Yeah. It'd be hundreds of thousands of dollars. Yeah,
which has gone on because the cardiac, it was the same before, it's #1 killer of Australians. 1 in 3 people suffer from it.
Yep, that's
Big
right.
Problem.
Exactly, and which is why we're all here tonight and doing what we can to. The thing that strikes me is that if everyone gives tonight, you may not know that you do any good. That's the problem.
That's the trouble. You think if I give $10 or $20, what's that going to do?
But it does.
It
works.
Does. It does.
Yep.
And the bushfire appeal, we saw that, didn't we?
That's right. You don't really see a finite result of the money that you give, but I think it does work, and we need to give generously.
Now, you've taken time out from a hectic schedule as co-host of the Sunday night show on Channel 7. What makes the work of the VCCRI so important in your mind?
Oh, for reasons we really discussed. I think that it's the #1 killer in the country. Our heart almost revolves around our entire body. We're not going to be doing anything without our brain and our heart. That's for sure. I think
absolutely.
And the research.
There's a blockage there. You just got no hope at all. There's any blockage in the arteries. You had it.
And I had a little bit to do with Dr. Chang and a lot more to do with Philip Spratt, and have seen firsthand and been in operations of heart transplants and seen them firsthand, and what these guys do is absolutely remarkable.
You should think. I always think to myself, we're all human beings. How can one man do something you and I couldn't even think about doing?
And save so many lives.
Save so many lives. So you met Victor, did you?
Yes, as a young reporter.
Yeah.
I don't think he would remember. He wouldn't have remembered me, but yeah, he was a fantastic guy and brilliant, and a brilliant man, and left a legacy of other brilliant young men to follow.
He did. He really trained them up, didn't he?
Exactly.
And I always think to myself, the fact that everyone has a nice word to say about him. I've never heard anyone say, years later after the news headlines die down, you hear things about somebody, some scandal. I've never heard anything about him except the good work he did.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed.
Yeah. Mike, thanks so much for doing that.
Yeah, Phil, thanks, Phil.
a lot.
Yeah.
Our next guest has literally become an institution of Australian radio. In a world of uncertainty, he is indeed a constant. Would you please welcome Mr. Bob Rogers? There he is.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bob.
How are you, Bob?
Not wearing a suit. Given my age, which you're probably going to tell everybody, I wear a cardie. I'm a cardie man.
Now, 67 years you've been doing radio. 67 years.
Started in 1942, yeah.
Unbelievable. So you're now the longest or the oldest continual broadcaster on radio.
Probably. I've got a married daughter of 30, and I keep saying to her, would you please have a baby? I could then qualify, just excuse me to get comfortable, the Guinness Book of Records to be the only fully employed, because I'm fully employed, great-grandfather in radio in the world, but she won't have the baby.
You better get her to hurry up. Now, your memories of Victor Chang are quite tragic. You're saying that you lived in the same street as where, unfortunately, he had his terrible demise.
Not in the same street, but I would have been driving past that very spot where he was shot that morning about 5 minutes before.
Hale Road.
Yes.
Hale Road. That's right, I'm trying to remember it. Hale Road, that's right.
And, no, Lang Street.
It was Lang Street.
And I actually visited there the other day to see what they'd done with his memorial. And it is a tragedy. There's a little stump of a tree, which I imagine was planted as a memorial to him as a sapling. I imagine the council has chopped it down, and there's a plaque about the size of a matchbox in memory of Victor Chang. That's all there is. It's a disgrace.
It is a disgrace. I don't think there's ever been a shooting, public shooting like that. It was the first time we had like a terrorist attack on someone's, you know, a public member of the public.
Yeah, and particularly someone
so high profile.
Exactly, and doing such wonderful work in the community, and to lose him was
just absolutely appalling.
Unbelievable, but yeah.
And you're saying it's 41 years today that you had heart problems.
Yes, the secret to my long life is marry a nagging wife. She nagged me. It took me 3 ECGs. I got to know what an ECG was before I'd believed that I had heart problems at 41. Then so I took up tennis and I gave up drinking for a few years.
Did you actually have a heart attack?
No, I was well on the way to it. And I'm aware of Dr. Victor Chang, but I wasn't a customer of his. And all I've had is bowel cancer, that's all.
That's bad enough.
Yes, I had that a few years ago.
But I think what people have got to realise, and you made that point very clear, with heart attacks, there aren't 60% of the cases there are no symptoms at all. We always think you get the pain across your chest and down your arm. Quite often you just don't get any symptoms. And that's why you've got to be checked and to see if you've got any plaque in your arteries and that sort of stuff, and regular blood tests and stuff, because people think you just to get that instant symptoms. You don't always get it, like in 60% of the cases.
No, and can I just say, I did a prostate story recently, and what was impressed upon me was that maybe a lot of us don't ask our doctors enough questions.
Particularly men.
Particularly men, and our doctors aren't probably giving us enough information. But we are not asking enough questions about, you know, what extra blood tests we should have, or why are we having that.
That's so true. All the doctors at the Institute said to me, it's always the case, people think to yourself, oh, I went down and had a blood pressure test, and he listened to my heart and I'm fine. That isn't enough anymore. You just can't do that. Even a stress test, a stress test will only show up the blockages if you're 70% or more blockages. If it's not 70% or more blockage in your arteries, it won't show up on a stress test.
You'd have a check-out every year, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I had an angiogram many years ago, where they put the thing in your
groin.
And you can watch it. They say you can watch the thing progress.
You can. Well, that's a big.
I didn't want to. I was terrified to stop, and I had a heart attack.
So, even though you've been up since dawn and done an entire morning's radio show, you still found time to come here tonight. What can you tell us? What is what's important about the ongoing work of the Institute to you?
Well, the whole St Vincent's Hospital is just a wonderful place to me.
It is.
And I'm just grateful that I've had such a privileged life, and it was because at the age of 41, I got that heart problem soon enough, and the same with the bowel cancer. If you get it soon enough, it's all right.
This is what they say, early detection. Look at breast cancer, how much is dropped by early detection. It's not the the treatment's any different. It's the getting into it earlier.
Bowel cancer, 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have a checkup once a year for 2 minutes, sorry, once every 3 or 4 years, you don't have to go
That's
back
fantastic.
again.
So if you go, I think it's after 50, you've got to start having one every year. Is that right?
No, not. I don't think we've. Well, I wouldn't want to say, but I know with my annual checkups, my doctor says after 50, you really only need a checkup every 3 or 4 years, depending on family history, etc.
Yeah, of course, very important.
But bowel cancer is a very long-term cancer, and you can nip it very early.
Well, you're living proof for getting to it early.
Yeah.
You know, I always think to myself, if things happen to you in your 40s and 50s, 50s and 60s, then you're normally in trouble for your 70s. If you get past that period, you're pretty well okay. Well, you've got to 83, 82.
Easy.
82, easy, yeah. Jumping at full, good God.
Can I just... John Singleton doesn't know how old I am. He thinks I'm 65. I want to sign another 10-year contract
Yeah, well,
with
doesn't
you.
your contract come up this year?
Yes, it does. It's coming
That
up
10 years
soon.
already over.
65, John.
And what's even better is that he wants to sign a new contract with you. Very keen too, I hear.
We don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, well, he's not going to let you go. He
No
can't
way,
replace you.
No way.
Now, my third guest is not only a highly respected journalist, but also somebody who had a heart attack and lived to tell the tale. Mr. Steve Liebman. Hi, Steve.
Nice to see you. Hey, stranger.
Steve, how are you, mate?
G'day, name.
Mate.
Sit
It's
here.
like a Channel 9 reunion
It
today,
is, isn't it?
This really should be, you know, all we need now is Brian Henderson.
See no evil, hear no evil.
Now, it was December 04, you were telling me you had your heart attack and didn't even know you'd had one.
I actually had a heart attack that I didn't know I'd had in September of 04. December 04, I was feeling a little unwell, tired, breathless, taking the garbage bins up the drive and things like that, and thought, oh, like these guys were saying, men don't, you know, you think you're bulletproof.
Of course, and you put it off and you think, oh, it's something else.
Yeah, it'll be right.
You don't want to think it's something
You're
serious.
quite right. But on this particular day, I thought I better ring the GP. And I went up and did a stress test, and 3 hours later I was in Royal North Shore having an ECG and an angiogram. After I'd had the ECG, the cardiologist, a fellow called Greg Nelson, said, "You've had a heart attack." And I said, "Look, that's rubbish." I didn't say it that way.
Because
but
once again, you're expected to have the classic symptoms of all
I had
terrible pain.
I had no symptoms. I had no chest pains. I had no pins and needles.
That's what we were saying before.
I played tennis 2, 3, 4 times a week. The other downside of it all was I was a very heavy smoker. But I did the ECG. He said, "You've had a heart attack and we better do an angiogram." And I heard you guys talking about it. So I went in within 3 hours. I've had the ECG and I'm in this OR room having an angiogram and conscious, lying on the gurney, looking at the big screen television set and watching it, the fluid run through your arteries, and hearing Dr. Nelson or Mr. Nelson saying to his associate, "See that artery? That's totally blocked."
And that's why the stress test brought up
Yeah.
the symptoms. As I was saying before, you've got to be 70%
Yeah.
or more blockage to have the symptoms come up on a stress
Okay,
test.
so he says that one's totally blocked. See that one? That's half blocked. And I'm, at this point, really scared because I thought, I have a daughter-in-law who's a triage nurse. She calls them rip and zips. And I'm lying on this table thinking, boy, I'm in strife. I'm going to end up having a rip and zip. And he said, "No, I think we can do it with stents." And there and then he put 2 stents in the blocked
It's amazing,
artery.
isn't it? A little balloon, a spring opens up the artery.
Amazing. So he put,
How long will they last, Dave?
well, they have. That's what, 4 years sent down the track.
4 years, right.
And I've had another stent put in since the original procedure, and I'm fine. But you see, I was a lucky one. I've heard of guys who've gone walking on the beach down at Balmoral with their wives, come home, said to their wife, "I'll just go upstairs and have a shower," never came downstairs.
Well, this is the point we're trying to make. It's called atrial fibrillation, when the actual heart goes into a chaotic state, as well as having a heart attack.
Well, I just think I was one of the lucky ones.
Well, Tim Russett, you know, the American host of Meet the Press?
Yes.
That big show we had here on Sunday nights?
Yeah.
He went into the studio, he'd been tested by a doctor in the morning on a stress test on the cycle, sat down to do the show, put his thing down and dropped dead.
And that was it?
That was it.
Yeah.
And the amazing thing was, and this is what we've got to stress, is the importance of having a defibrillator. Everywhere. You know, you've got a 66% chance of a defibrillator
Yeah.
and a 92% chance if you've got a built-in defibrillator when you have a...
You mean
Yeah.
a pack of whacker?
Pack a whacker, yeah, pack a whacker, yeah.
No,
Well, the pack a whacker, he put in them all the ambers, that's right.
Well, I
that
read-
saved his life, didn't it?
I read a story last week in
Of course.
the Melbourne Age about a big-time stockbroker in Melbourne who was aware of the high incidence of heart disease and brought in tutors so that his staff were all educated as far as CPR was concerned.
That's a great idea.
And then his staff turned around and talked him into putting a defibrillator in the office. And they cost something like $2,500. They're not expensive.
I'm amazed cars don't have them in. I'm amazed high-end cars like Mercs and BMWs don't, instead of a first aid kit, have a defibrillator in
Well,
them.
the punchline to all of this was the stockbroker had a heart attack.
Or he had no heart previous to...
No history at
having
all.
this.
Had a heart attack in his office, and he had staff who'd been trained in CPR and the defibrillator there, and it saved his life. And now I think they should be at sporting arenas, railway stations,
Shopping centres.
They should be
in
everywhere.
America, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
But the fact that NBC didn't have one in their studio is pretty amazing.
I wonder, is there one here?
I wonder if there is now. I don't have a heart attack now.
I don't know whether this applies, but in the days when we all learnt to go jogging, before I took up tennis, I went jogging a lot. And I bought this book by James Fix.
He dropped dead.
F-I-X-X. He was out running at the age of 56 and he drops dead.
He did.
Didn't give me a lot of courage.
Didn't get the book much of an endorsement, did it?
Yeah.
No, but I think what we're all saying is three things. One, get yourself tested, not just for a blood pressure and the doctor listening with a stethoscope, but get a blood test done.
Full checkup.
Full checkup, because you know what? It can happen at any age. I got a friend of mine who was in his 30s has had 2 heart attacks.
Yeah.
But a heavy smoker, like you. Were you smoking 2 packs a day?
Yeah.
He was smoking 2 packs a day.
But I haven't smoked.
It damaged his arteries
I
completely.
haven't had a cigarette since the day of the first procedure when they put the stents in, and the cardiologist said to me, "Listen, it's your call. Stop smoking or you're a dead man."
And he still smokes, this guy.
Not me.
No, he does. 39.
Yeah. Well, I don't.
No. Was it hard giving up? Just to...
No. But it took something like that to make me give up.
That's right.
If it hadn't have happened, I'm sure I'd still be smoking.
And people don't realise smoking is probably one of the worst things
Oh, yeah.
for your arteries. Just destroys
But
them.
again, you think you're bulletproof. You think, oh yeah, I know I should give up smoking.
Not
I know
what
it's
happened to
not
me.
good for my heart.
No.
But it won't happen to me.
No, we just did a testimonial from John Alani, Crazy John's widow. And she said he just went outside,
Yeah.
went for a walk and just dropped dead.
Yeah.
So that's the message anyway tonight, really, to
It's
say...
a strong message.
Say to everybody, I was going to say to you actually, what would you say to people out there, you know, who are, I mean, apart from give generously to the Institute?
Well, give generously is the given.
Yeah, that's
give
it.
generously.
Yeah.
Because the work that the Institute has done, is doing, and I'm sure will continue to do, could very well save your own life.
Yeah, that's what I think is the actual crux of it. Well, thank you.
Can I just give a message to all the men?
Please.
Marry a nagging wife.
Now, how do you find... You said you just keep it other ends of the house, don't you, you two? How do you survive 60 years of marriage?
You promised you wouldn't mention that.
He pretends he doesn't, but he absolutely
We want some advice,
does.
though.
right.
How did you survive 60 years?
How did she survive? That's the more important.
That's right.
He's
Yeah,
smart.
that's
The camera's on now, so
The
he's saying
answer-
that, of course.
You know what his answer to that is? He just says, yes, dear. Yes, dear.
Yeah, that's right. Yes,
Then he
dear.
goes and does his own thing.
That's the way.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Steve, Bob and Mike, thank you so much, all of you,
Thanks
for
a lot.
giving your time this
Pleasure.
evening. Really appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Nice to meet you.
Now it's back to you, Mr. Packer.